The moment my mother-in-law slapped me across the face, my 6-year-old daughter screamed, "Mommy!" Then came the words I'll never forget. "Take your daughter and get out. You'll always be trailer trash." The dining room fell silent. My husband didn't move. My sister-in-law smiled. Even the Christmas music kept playing like nothing had happened. So I picked up my daughter's little pink coat, looked my mother-in-law straight in the eyes, and quietly said, "You're going to regret this dinner for the rest of your life." She laughed, because she had no idea that 3 days earlier, I'd uncovered a family secret powerful enough to shatter everything she thought she controlled. The first Christmas I spent with my husband's family, my mother-in-law looked at my homemade pie and smiled. Then she whispered just loud enough for everyone to hear. Well, I guess people from trailer parks cook differently. Everyone laughed, including my husband. He later told me she was just joking. For 8 years, every holiday came with another joke, another insult, another reminder that, in her eyes, I would never belong. I wasn't born into money. I grew up in a small rural town where my mom worked double shifts at a diner and my dad repaired farm equipment. We never had much, but we always had enough. We learned to fix things instead of replacing them. We celebrated birthdays around a folding table, and Christmas presents were wrapped in newspaper when money was tight. I was proud of where I came from. My mother-in-law, Evelyn, wasn't. The day I married her son, Daniel, she hugged me for the cameras, then quietly said, "Don't embarrass this family." I should have paid attention to those 5 words. Daniel always insisted his mother would eventually accept me. "She just needs time," he'd say. 8 years later, time had changed nothing. If anything, it had made her bolder. Every family gathering followed the same pattern. She criticized my clothes, compared me to my sister-in-law, Vanessa, asked if I was still doing that little accounting job, then reminded everyone how successful Vanessa's husband was. Vanessa loved every second of it. She had inherited her mother's talent for smiling while twisting the knife. Only one person in that family ever treated me with genuine respect. Daniel's father, Robert. He rarely interrupted anyone, but whenever Evelyn crossed a line, I'd catch him looking at me with quiet disappointment, not in me, but in the family he had somehow lost control of. Then there was my daughter, 6-year-old Lily. She was the only reason I kept showing up every Christmas. I wanted her to know her grandparents. I wanted her childhood to be bigger than the resentment between adults. So every year, I swallowed my pride. Until the Christmas everything finally broke. Snow covered the neighborhood as Daniel and I drove to his parents' estate with Lily asleep in the back seat. She clutched the stuffed reindeer I'd won for her at the county fair. Daniel squeezed my hand. "Let's just get through dinner." I forced a smile. I always do. The house looked like something from a holiday magazine. Towering Christmas trees, crystal chandeliers, perfectly wrapped presents stacked beneath them. Everything looked warm. Everything except the people inside. The insult started before I even took my coat off. "Oh," Evelyn said loudly, looking at my green dress. "I didn't realize casual was the theme this year." Vanessa laughed. "I actually thought she was one of the caterers." A few relatives chuckled awkwardly. I pretended not to hear. Lily reached for my hand. I squeezed hers. Dinner began, and for nearly an hour, I managed to avoid becoming the center of attention. Then Robert announced he wanted everyone together more often because family mattered more than money. I noticed Vanessa roll her eyes. She set down her wine glass. "Easy to say," she replied. "Some people contribute a lot more to this family than others." Her eyes locked onto mine. The room suddenly felt much smaller. I stayed quiet. She wasn't finished. I mean, let's be honest. Daniel could have married someone who actually elevated the family. Daniel shifted uncomfortably beside me. "Vanessa." She ignored him. "No offense, Emily, but you've spent 8 years benefiting from this family's success." I finally looked at her. "I've never asked your parents for a single dollar." She smirked. "You didn't have to." Evelyn leaned forward. "She's right." I felt Lily move closer against my side. I could almost hear my own heartbeat. "I built my own career," I said calmly. I've worked every day since I graduated college. Evelyn laughed. A modest little paycheck doesn't impress anyone here. Robert quietly said, Evelyn, enough. She ignored him. Instead, she stood. Her chair scraped sharply across the hardwood floor. You know what your problem is? She snapped. You've always wanted respect you never earned. I slowly stood too. I didn't come here to fight. No, she shouted. You came here pretending you're one of us. Before I could answer, her hand struck my face. The crack echoed through the dining room. Lily gasped. No one moved. Then Evelyn pointed toward the front door. Her voice shook with fury. Take your daughter and get out. You'll always be trailer trash. The room froze. I looked at Daniel. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. That silence hurt far more than the slap. Without raising my voice, I picked up Lily's little pink coat. She wrapped her tiny fingers around mine. We walked toward the door. No screaming. No insults. No revenge. Just silence. As we pulled away from the house, Lily looked out the snowy window before quietly asking, Mom, why didn't Daddy stop Grandma? I couldn't answer. Not because I didn't know, but because 3 days earlier, inside Robert's home office, I'd accidentally uncovered a secret that was about to change every person sitting at that Christmas table forever. People think life-changing secrets announce themselves with dramatic moments. Mine arrived inside a dusty cardboard box labeled 2018 tax records. 3 days before Christmas, Robert called me while I was finishing payroll reports at work. Emily, he said, I hate asking this during the holidays, but could you stop by my office? My accountant retired unexpectedly, and I'm trying to organize years of paperwork before the new one starts. As an accountant, organizing financial records was second nature to me. Of course, I replied. I'll come after work. His office sat above one of the family's commercial properties downtown. Unlike Evelyn's lavish decorating style, Robert's workspace was simple. Wood shelves, old leather chairs, stacks of neatly labeled files. The room reflected the man himself, quiet, practical, and orderly. For nearly 2 hours, we sorted invoices, investment statements, insurance documents, and property records. Around 6 o'clock, Robert stepped out to answer a phone call. Help yourself to coffee, he said before closing the door behind him. I kept working. One folder refused to fit inside the filing cabinet. When I opened it, several pages slipped onto the floor. I bent down to collect them. That's when something caught my attention. 2 nearly identical transfer summaries. Same investment account. Same date. Different dollar amounts. I frowned. At first I assumed one was simply a corrected copy. Then I noticed the authorization signatures. They weren't identical. Not even close. As accountants, we're trained to notice tiny inconsistencies. Numbers tell stories. Signatures do too. Curious, I compared the documents with the surrounding records. The transfers had financed one of Vanessa's newest business ventures, a luxury event company she'd proudly claimed was completely self-funded. Except, the paperwork suggested otherwise. When Robert returned, I hesitated. I found something that might just be a filing error. He adjusted his glasses and studied the papers. His forehead tightened. I've never seen these before. He quietly sat down. For nearly 5 minutes, neither of us spoke. Finally, he sighed. I've had this feeling for months. What feeling? That money has been disappearing in ways I couldn't explain. He leaned back heavily. I wanted to believe I was simply getting older. I looked at him carefully. Have you asked Vanessa about it? He nodded slowly. She always had an explanation. And Evelyn? His expression changed. She tells me not to question our daughter. That answer explained far more than he intended. Robert wasn't accusing anyone. Neither was I. The documents weren't enough to reach conclusions. They simply raised questions. Important ones. I'll organize everything, I told him. We shouldn't make assumptions until every record matches. He looked relieved. That's exactly why I asked you. Over the next 2 days, after finishing my regular job, I quietly reviewed years of statements with his permission. Every answer created 2 new questions. Several transfers had been approved without the usual supporting documents. Property maintenance expenses appeared unusually inflated. Investment withdrawals matched the timeline of Vanessa's expanding lifestyle. Luxury vacations, a new SUV, designer renovations. Yet her business record showed very little actual profit. None of it proved theft. But none of it made financial sense either. I created a spreadsheet. Every transaction, every authorization, every supporting document. Anything missing was highlighted. Anything unusual received a note. By Christmas Eve, a clear pattern had started emerging. Money wasn't simply disappearing. It was being redirected through complicated but traceable transactions. Enough to concern any experienced accountant. Robert stared silently at the reports. I don't understand why she would hide this. I don't know if she's hiding anything yet, I answered honestly. We only know the records deserve an independent review. He nodded. I'll hire an outside forensic accountant after the holidays. That's the right decision. Then Christmas dinner happened. The slap. The humiliation. The words I'd never forget. Asterisk, take your daughter and get out. Asterisk. Driving home that night, anger tempted me more than once. I could have called Robert immediately. I could have exposed everything before sunrise. I could have told Daniel exactly what I'd found. But emotions make terrible investigators. If I acted while hurt, everyone would assume I was simply trying to get revenge. I refused to give them that excuse. Instead, I waited. The Monday after Christmas, Robert called. The forensic accountant accepted the case. Over the following weeks, professionals reviewed every account independently. I wasn't involved beyond providing organized records. That mattered. The conclusions had to come from facts, not from me. As January turned into February, the findings became impossible to ignore. Multiple transactions lacked proper authorization. Financial decisions consistently favored Vanessa's personal projects. Several explanations she'd previously given Robert didn't match the documented evidence. Each verified report added another piece to a puzzle no one wanted to see. One evening, Robert invited me to his office again. He looked older than I remembered. Not physically. Emotionally. I owe you an apology, he said quietly. For what? For letting this family convince itself that character could be measured by money. I didn't know what to say. He looked toward the window. Evelyn spent years judging where you came from. Then he looked back at me. She never noticed the person quietly protecting what this family had actually built. A week later, Robert scheduled a private family dinner. No holiday decorations. No celebration. No speeches. Just one request. Everyone needs to be there. As I ended the call, I had this strange feeling that the hardest conversation wasn't behind us. It was waiting at the dinner table, where the truth would finally have nowhere left to hide. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday morning. No decorations. No holiday greeting. No explanation. Just one sentence from Robert. Family dinner. Saturday at 6. Please come. I stared at the message for several minutes. Daniel had already moved into a short-term apartment after Christmas. We weren't separated officially, but everything between us felt suspended. He called that evening. Are you going? I don't know. I think Dad wants everyone there. I figured that much. There was a long silence. Then he quietly said, I'm sorry I didn't stop her. Those words should have meant everything. Instead, they arrived almost 2 months too late. I'm taking Lily, I replied. But I'm not coming to pretend nothing happened. You shouldn't. Saturday evening felt strangely familiar. The same driveway. The same front porch. The same dining room where my dignity had been left on the floor beside a broken Christmas ornament. Only this time, I walked in without trying to earn anyone's approval. Lily held my hand. Robert greeted us first. I'm glad you're here. So am I. Evelyn stood across the room. She looked nothing like the woman who had screamed at me on Christmas. Her confidence had disappeared. Vanessa, however, still carried herself as though she controlled the room. She smiled when she saw me. I wasn't sure you'd actually come. I'm here. She shrugged. Good. Maybe we can finally move past all the holiday drama. Holiday drama. That was apparently what she called publicly humiliating someone in front of a child. Dinner was served quietly. No one made small talk. No Christmas music. No forced laughter. Only the sound of silverware against china. Halfway through the meal, Robert placed a thick folder on the table. I asked everyone here because this conversation belongs in front of the entire family. Vanessa leaned back. What is this? The Independent Financial Review. Her smile faded. Robert slowly opened the folder. For the past several weeks, certified forensic accountants have examined every questioned transaction. He slid several reports across the table. The findings are complete. Nobody spoke. Robert continued calmly. Multiple transfers were made, without proper authorization. He turned another page. Several family investment accounts were used to finance private business expenses. Another page. Supporting documentation was altered or incomplete. Vanessa laughed nervously. This can't be serious. It is. She reached toward the reports. There has to be some mistake. There isn't. Robert's voice never rose. The accountants independently confirmed every finding. Vanessa looked toward her mother. Mom. Evelyn didn't answer. She simply stared at the documents. Robert folded his hands. I asked one more question during the investigation. Everyone looked at him. I asked who first noticed the inconsistencies. His eyes met mine. It wasn't me. It was Emily. Silence filled the room. Robert continued. She never accused anyone. She never threatened anyone. She simply organized the records and insisted that independent professionals determine the truth. He looked directly at Evelyn. She protected this family while we were busy judging her. Evelyn slowly lowered her head. Her hands began trembling. I didn't know, she whispered. Robert nodded sadly. No. You didn't want to know. Those words landed harder than any shout. Vanessa suddenly pushed back her chair. I was trying to grow the business. Robert interrupted gently. Then you should have asked. I was going to pay everything back. That doesn't change what happened. She looked desperately at Evelyn. Mom, say something. For the first time in years, Evelyn didn't defend her daughter. Instead, she stood, walked around the table, stopped directly in front of me. Tears rolled down her face before she spoke. I called you trailer trash. Her voice broke. I slapped you. She looked toward Lily. And I made my granddaughter watch it. The room remained perfectly still. I judged your past instead of your character. She wiped away another tear. The woman I insulted turned out to be the only person protecting this family when it mattered most. Then something I never expected happened. Evelyn began crying openly. Not quietly. Not politely. The proud woman who had spent years believing she was always right completely fell apart beside the dinner table. I'm so sorry, Emily. I can't undo what I did. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just needed you to hear me say that I was wrong. I looked at Lily. She squeezed my hand exactly the way I had squeezed hers on Christmas night. Then I looked back at Evelyn. I appreciate your apology. She closed her eyes. But forgiveness, I continued softly, isn't built by one conversation. It's built by change behavior. She nodded through her tears. I understand. Daniel finally spoke. I failed you. He looked at me with tears in his own eyes. I spent years asking you to be patient instead of asking my family to be respectful. I simply answered. I hope Lily grows up believing respect should never require patience. No one argued. No one defended themselves. Some truths leave no room for excuses. Months later, family dinners looked different. Smaller, quieter, healthier. Respect replaced sarcasm. Boundaries replaced obligation. Lily laughed again inside that house without fear. As for me, I never forgot the slap. But I also never forgot the lesson. The greatest victory wasn't watching someone else break down. It was walking back into the same dining room with my dignity completely intact, because in the end, the truth accomplished what anger never could. And from that day forward, no one in that family ever questioned where I came from again. They only remembered the woman who refused to lose herself, even when everyone else expected her to.